Okay guys, so this is a video that I figured would have a lot of interest given the poll results I saw. Now, I just got to start out, I'm not a doctor, obviously. I am not in any way condoning anabolic steroid use. This is just simply my experiences. So I don't condone steroids ever. I haven't taken anything in over 2 years. That's not what this is about. This is to kind of break down my experiences and tell you guys all about my experiences with Tren. Now, I'm not going to say the same stuff that you can read online. Like, I see a lot of these videos and it's simply guys reading a steroid profile online, which you can find anywhere. You can read that it's a 19-nor steroid and that all the things they say about it as far as sides and all that, which are super generic. That's what a lot of the videos are, just rehashing that sort of thing. But I'm going to go into what I felt on it, my experiences with it, and why it can be pretty dang harsh. So I would start off by saying Tren is the steroid of all steroids. Truthfully, think about that one more time. Tren is the steroid of all steroids. So if my point being, if steroids could go on steroids, you would have Tren acetate specifically, because there's Tren enanthate and Tren acetate. I always felt that Tren acetate was much more potent, which if you look at the absorption rate, so with each compound that you were to take, there is a certain absorption rate with each one. So if you're taking a 250 milligrams of testosterone enanthate, you're only getting about 65% of the actual CC. So you're actually only getting, 150 milligrams roughly. So with Tren Ace, it's got a higher absorption rate than Tren enanthate. I believe around 85%. But don't quote me on that. I think it's roughly around there. So I always noticed acetate to be much stronger. Obviously, it has a shorter half-life. You would, presumably take it more frequently. But the reason I say that it is the steroid of all steroids was because it was just crazy, the strength gains. On paper, it's been quoted as being, I believe, 5 times more androgenic and anabolic than testosterone. So truthfully, when I would take it, testosterone by itself, when I would come off, just felt like being natural. It didn't feel like anything. It was very underwhelming because trenbolone was so high above what I would experience on testosterone. Once I discovered it, I didn't really take anything else with it oftentimes. I wouldn't run orals going into a powerlifting meet, such as D-ball or anything like that. I did at times, but oftentimes I would literally just do test enanthate and trenbolone acetate because it was that strong. As far as the bang for my buck with strength gains, it was far and away above everything else. I would actually, to many people's surprise, put Anavar as the second for best bang for my buck in terms of strength gains. But Tren was just on another level from everything else, quite simply. The strength gains were bonkers. I mean, when I pulled the 920 pounds, roughly 418 kilos, I was just on test and Tren. And the Tren dose wasn't that high, albeit it was completely adequate. I believe it was around 350 milligrams a week. But I wasn't even on any orals at that point. I wasn't on a crazy high testosterone dose. I want to say my testosterone dose from memory was about 500 milligrams a week at that point. But just having that 350 milligrams of Tren in there, the weights felt stupid light. Like, the explosiveness was insane. And that's one of the ways you kind of measure it as a powerlifter in terms of how good a compound was, how much it would give you, was that explosiveness that you'd feel. And the explosiveness I'd feel was at simply another level from anything else, with Anavar following behind at number 2. But it has its sides, obviously. So you guys are going to say, oh, it sounds great, why wouldn't we take it? And obviously it's going to wreck your cholesterol, your lipid panel, unlike anything else. It's going to jack your LDL higher than just about any other compound, throw the whole lipid panel off, crush your HDL, so your good cholesterol is going to be down to nothing. And while I know that cholesterol isn't necessarily the end-all be-all anymore, there's a lot more research into triglycerides and the importance of keeping those low, and things like fasted insulin and C-reactive protein. I have no doubt that the systemic inflammation in my body, which you'd measure with C-reactive protein, was through the roof on this stuff, because blood pressure goes through the roof. Blood pressure 160, 180, even 200, over 100 is not uncommon on this stuff. it's going to result in massive, rise in blood pressure, which is why you get stronger a lot of times. I addressed this in one of my other videos. When blood pressure goes up, you simply get stronger. So that was one of the main things, beyond the lipid panel getting decimated. It is fairly harsh on the kidneys, so you're going to have to drink more water, just as you would with creatine. And it sounds silly putting trenbolone and creatine in the same sentence, but they both make it to where you need to drink more water because you're going to be more dehydrated. I don't specifically think it automatically leans you out. There was a lot of stuff I would read online about how it would automatically lean you out, and that's simply not true. If you're eating a caloric surplus, you're not going to lean out. You're going to put on crazy size on it. So it would give the freakish look through the traps, through the upper back. An immense amount of muscle mass would be gained during that time. But it is very harsh. It's very harsh overall. And Tren cough, I'll touch on some more things coming up, but Tren cough, I experienced it many times. I would say probably 1 in every 6 shots I would get Tren cough, no matter where you take it, whether it was the delt or the glute or whatever. And Tren cough, for those who don't know, it's like as soon as you finish the injection, basically, there is a minute period where you have this violent cough. So oftentimes I would be on my knees on the floor, coughing violently. And it's not, if you know what it is, it's really not that terrifying. One of the things that I would do to make it pass would be to have a glass of water on hand and just chug the glass of water as soon as I feel it coming on. And you would first feel this metallic type taste in the back of your throat. There would be this metallic type taste because it hit the bloodstream. You sometimes nick a vein or whatever. And then this violent cough would ensue. But it would always go away, within a minute or so. So it is quite maybe startling if you don't know what it is, but that was never really a thing where I was, stressing out about. Dosage wise, I typically would do anywhere from 200 milligrams as little as a week because it's so powerful that you don't need much. 200 milligrams will blow your strength up. So I would do it maybe one day on Monday, 100 milligrams Monday, 100 milligrams Friday. But oftentimes I would do 350 a week, which is simple math of 100 grams every other day. And then other times, pre-meet, I would jack it up as high as 700 milligrams that last meet week. So at that high of a dose, your cardio is destroyed. So one of the things Tren does is increases your progesterone levels to a very high extent, and your cardio is affected by this. So my cardio will kind of disappear. I would do one of the most classic examples I can think of is at the backyard meet of the century, the super training meet, where I did that 661 300 kilo high bar squat to the floor. That last week, I'd done 700 milligrams of Tren-Ace. And in the warm-up room, I would do a single with 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plates, so on squats. I would be completely out of breath after 1 rep. So 1 rep would just get me completely out of breath, which is ridiculous. I almost wonder what my resting heart rate was at that point. I would venture to guess my resting heart rate was well over 100, which is ridiculous to think about. So it's extremely stressful on the organs, specifically the heart in terms of blood pressure, the kidneys in terms of blood pressure, and the heart in terms of your heart rate goes up so significantly. But dosage-wise, like I said, 200 milligrams a week even would just blow me up to an extent that nothing else would. Now, one of the main issues with it, the mental side effects were another level from anything else. They were 5 levels from anything else. And people can say okay, well, I didn't feel that on Tren, but honestly, guys, a lot of you guys out there claiming I don't get any side effects from Tren, I think your Tren is bunk. I mean, quite simply, I got a big mental effect from it to where I was not fun to be around. I was not fun to be in the same room with or to associate with. I was very cold. I remember times of walking down the street and, I'm this 255 pound, seemingly what it felt like being a monster, invincible, and just staring at people because it was this aggression where I was always paranoid. The paranoia was another factor. I was always paranoid people were sizing me up or whatever. And I was paranoid about cheating with girlfriends and such, and just a whole host of side effects where the paranoia, and this has been reported by many people, it can get rather extreme to where you're always paranoid that everyone's out to get you or wrong you in some way. So this leads to more aggression. The aggression was extreme in the gym and outside of the gym. So it's kind of this double-edged sword where it's like, yeah, sure, the aggression when I'm trying to hit a PR or lift heavy weights was great, but then outside of the gym, it was hell. You don't want to be that aggressive outside of the gym because it gets you into trouble. You find yourself in bad situations. I was a bouncer, doorman, and, you know, classic hothead, you know, bouncer. And I'm not proud of it, but this is what happened. And it's just one of those things that takes you to a level where you're completely out of your mind, essentially. I was very unstable, my behavior. And I was not like this any other anabolic steroid. My general personality is rather relaxed and calm. So this was just like straight up roid rage in a bottle. I mean, roid rage, I always thought it was this overplayed characteristic that was completely made up by the media and masses to kind of demean steroids. But really, and for the most part, I think it is with all of the other steroids, but Trenbolone was one of those ones where it was real. It was the only one where I'm like, okay, roid rage, I kind of see it. Because even on halotestin, I didn't get the paranoia or the craziness that I would on Trenbolone. It was just a whole different story. So that was the one where I'm like, yeah, roid rage is probably a thing. Just because of the hair trigger temper, the aggressiveness, paranoia, instability, all these sorts of things, which Tren has also been called the relationship killer. If you are in a relationship on Tren, good luck, because it's probably not going to last in many cases. And of course, there will be those who come in and have, they'll say, I ran Tren, everything was fine, but I have just as many guys over the years who will come in and say, yes, this ruined my relationship in some sort of way. It will wreak havoc on your relationship. I don't know how anyone freaking runs this with a girlfriend or wife and makes it through. Unless your significant other has the patience of a saint, it's not at all a good idea, especially if you have a family. You got to think above that. I know the gains sound nice, and they are, but the feeling you have 24 hours a day as far as that is just not worth it. Now, a couple other things to kind of address. Night sweats. I recall the night sweats where you wake up sweating because your body temperature is so high, from obviously higher blood pressure, higher heart rate, all of that. You're in a very adrenaline-based state. Your adrenaline's always pumping. Your adrenaline's always through the roof, which is extremely bad for your heart, which is where the strength comes from. That's where the optimal training comes from, where you can hit any weight. You know, there'd be oftentimes in the gym where I felt like, put whatever weight on the bar, I'm going to smash it. And the personal records were greater than on other anabolic steroids. I could get a 40-pound boost on my bench, or 70 pounds on my deadlift. It was truly like that. The weights felt light. The explosiveness was there. But then again, you come back to this constantly being in an adrenaline-based state. Everything's having to work harder. It's very hard on the body. You're sweating all night. I never had this to this extent, but there were people who would talk about soaking their sheets with sweat. And there was also the talk of people who had terrible insomnia on it. I never really had the insomnia, but this ties back into the adrenaline-based state. You're going to have some insomnia to where it would keep guys up all night. They couldn't sleep at all, and they'd actually make worse gains on it. So it has a lot of side effects. Typically, people think it's supposed to be a rusty color, like a reddish brown, but that usually means that the trend was burnt in the cooking process, because it should be actually a lighter yellow. It has a very low heating point. If it's overheated past that point, you will burn it. It will turn rusty colored. So that's why we often see that. I'm trying to think of everything else. I want to be thorough here. At the end of the day, it's definitely not something I would recommend. I know it has a mythological idea behind it in the strength community and in the fitness community in general. Like, everyone thinks it's the cool thing. Like these guys who just got the name Tren Twins, and anytime you talk about Tren, it blows up. Like, people love to hear about it, even though most of you are not going to experience it, which is what I would say don't do it. I'm not recommending that at all. From a health standpoint, I could never in good faith recommend any anabolic steroid to anyone. I think if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have touched some of this stuff. I would have done it much healthier with blood work and all that sort of stuff. Used Merrick Health, for example. And I just would have done things in a much smarter fashion. So that's my warning. It's not to be trifled with. If you trifle with it, you will feel its power, and it might not be a good thing. You might end up in jail. You might end up broken up with your significant other. There's a whole host of things that could go wrong. People run it way too long. I know I did. I don't know how anyone could mentally handle it beyond like 6 to 8 weeks tops. 8 weeks would seem like an eternity. And that's often the case where I would feel so burnt out mentally that I would just be like, I don't even want to run this anymore because I hate my life. There was like a depression of like hating my life outside the gym. The gym was good, but in the gym even I was cold as cold as ice. I wouldn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to mind my own business and do my own thing. And I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to train. And outside of the gym, I just wanted to be left alone. I wanted to be in a room watching like TV or a movie, left alone, because everything irritated me. I remember being irritated about everything, which you couldn't even live life on it to that point where you're just irritated constantly. So again, guys, these are my experiences. Some will relate, some will not. But I want y'all to heed my warning about this. It is not to be trifled with. It is very serious. The health ramifications, all that sort of stuff. We've seen a lot of people in the industry pass away in the last 5 years. Tons. I'm not saying this directly from Tren, but obviously Tren's not a good decision from a health standpoint. So I do not condone this stuff. I definitely would not do it. But there is, I think there should be a discussion around it and what it does, why not to do it, and all this sort of thing. So if you guys like this video, let me know in the comments. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate all you guys. Thank you.